Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. Hope you guys are enjoying your week. Man, I've been sleeping pretty good lately, finally. It's been a while, months. But sleeping early, waking up early. I was up before the sun. I woke up and I could see Venus over the neighbor's house. And I'm just like, what time is it? I think my fan, got a new fan. I think it was set for 8 hours. And I woke up and the fan was off. So, I don't know. I turned it on before. I think I turned it on around 9:30 p.m. And I think I woke up around 5:15, 5:30. But I'm up now, 6:30 in the morning. Yesterday I recorded before work. Today, here we go again. So kind of wanting to talk about, excuse me, Yanni, gosh, kind of wanting to talk about kind of what is going on lately with probably not just me. I'm noticing a lot of people shifting jobs, a lot of people shifting housing. For those of us who are moving in with people, moving back in with people who we once knew, moving back around people who we once knew, moving in with people who maybe we're getting to know. The social climate of things is kind of changing for a lot of us. And it was kind of bringing to my attention more so all the aspects of, just coming out in general. That is coming out. All the aspects of coming out are just kind of coming out now. I think a lot of people know my story, but, I was overall raised in LA, moved from the Midwest when I was 5. So it's I have early memories and family in the Midwest, but, I wasn't really, other than family, I wasn't independently social when I was about 5 years old, and younger. And then we moved to LA when I was 5. And LA is an interesting place to grow up because, there's so many diverse groups of people, but also not every city is diverse. There are little pockets of diverse places, and then there are places that are kind of more so not officially segregated, but segregated, there's certain areas where you'll find way more Latinos, way more Vietnamese people, way more Black people, way more Filipino people, way more Japanese and Korean people, way more Caucasian people. It really just depends where you're at. There's definitely a little bit of defined borders, but it's a free country. You're allowed to go wherever and live wherever and be wherever, but it's you do notice it. Certain areas is just very concentrated, racially, ethnically, and that's not really a bad thing. It can be. I mean, everything kind of has its costs and benefits to it, but it does keep the city just so different. Depending where you're hanging out, where you're going, who that lives where, who you're visiting, is just so different based on kind of what's going on in what area. And I like that, but also it's kind of it does make the city a little bit territorial in some aspects too. And so on the queer end of things, there's definitely a more queer part of LA, where you're WeHo, Hollywood, downtown-ish, Not too much East LA, but like, you know, things kind of like they kind of, there's like a radiating gradient, if you want to call it that. Like there's kind of like uh, a radiating gradient, I guess you would say, where kind of like the gay kind of fades the further and further you get from like WeHo, West Hollywood, but it also, it's also LA, so it's very diverse. And certain areas that are a little more pricey, like WeHo, you find a lot of the queer people nowadays kind of moving to other cities, other parts of the city, because it's a little expensive. So now there's more pockets of queer people in the valley, and then, you know, spreading out like more towards like east, like San Bernardino area, San Bernardino County, you know, spreading out, you know, a little more south, southeast. Like it's a little different. People kind of moving away from the coast because it's pricier on the coast, and moving a little more inland and towards the valleys, and maybe a little south. But then the further south you go, you get closer and closer to Orange County, and then the pricing goes up. So it's kind of like people are trying to shift and move around, but there's like pockets of places where you find people wanting to live. You know, away from the coast, the weather isn't so great when it gets too hot, you know. It doesn't get too cold, at least. So once it's not summer anymore, and we're in the middle of like a massive heat wave right now, but once it's not summer anymore, you know, the weather does cool down and it's not like intolerable. But it's just, you know, the city's changing right before our eyes as the economy's changing. And you know, I listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey, and he was mentioning how, you know, a lot of people, you know, in Tennessee are from California, and then in Vegas, the YouTubers I follow with like finance and stuff, you know, a lot of the people are from California. So, you know, with that comes, you know, people who are, you know, oftentimes maybe used to a more diverse culture, you know, and then branching out into even other states because it's more affordable in other places. Like, you know, Southern California is not freaking affordable. You know, if you're younger, you know, trying to make a way, building your career, even thinking about, like, it's kind of interesting because, like, you know, my family's like totally in denial about how queer I am, and you know, they kind of joke around a lot, and they're kind of like, well, to them it's joking, to me it's just obnoxious, but they kind of joke around a lot about you know, making comments like, oh, like, when are you gonna make me a grandparent, or like things like that. And I'm just like, yeah, like, I can barely afford myself. Like, how am I gonna have kids and try to afford that? Like, you know, like, and also most people I know can't really afford to live single, solo, you know, by themselves. It's just kind of like a little yeah, it's just kind of generally how things kind of go. And then, you know, like, overall I find it kind of interesting, you know, just how it is, you know. So for me lately, something I've been kind of experiencing is, you know, this dynamic of, you know, really missing San Diego, missing my San Diego friends. You know, my life was different in San Diego, you know, like, I moved down there, and, you know, when things didn't work out with school, I was working. And then the people I started meeting through work, like coworkers and other, like, a couple school friends I kept in touch with, and just like other people I was meeting mostly through work, or, you know, because I was connected with the campus but maybe wasn't in the same cohort in classes as some friends I made. And we just it was easier to bond. I was explaining to some LA friends how easy it is in San Diego, because, like, not necessarily financially easy or anything like that, but it's just easier to hang out because everybody lives so close. Like, the furthest I'll see people from each other is, like, between Chula Vista and Escondido. But usually most people live, like, centrally, meaning that they're within a 15-minute drive. Maybe give it 20 minutes, 25 minutes max if you're trying to be, like, early and not worry about parking, and walk from where you park or whatever. Like, if that's an issue where you're meeting up with somebody, then it's like, yeah, maybe 25 minutes. Versus in LA, if I want to go visit someone, usually, unless I'm staying in the little region that I'm in, if I want to go visit friends in, like, Culver City or Hollywood or downtown, it's like, that could easily take, like, 45 minutes to an hour just to get there. And then, so usually, like, if it's really bad traffic time, leaving, like, 90 minutes in advance to meet somebody, it's like, just for coffee, that's a big chunk out of your day. And then you have to drive, like, an hour back. It's like, or even meeting friends in Anaheim, it's like that. It's like an hour away almost, like 45, 50 something minutes. It's like, it's really not that far, but it's like, when you start hitting traffic pockets, you're just like, what are you going to do? Like, there's no real way around that. Like, you can hop off the freeways and drive the streets and little highways a little bit, but I mean, really, there's not really that much. Like, you might save 5 minutes or so, but, it's really not a huge difference. It just makes more sense sometimes to just, like, stick onto the freeways and just chill and just drive in the traffic, like, whatever. And you guys hear me when I'm driving, like, between San Diego and stuff. Like it's at least a 2-hour drive. So, it does get a little lonely, like, in LA, just because, like, the people that I prefer to see live far from me. They're kind of the people that I vibe with more, the people I met in, like, grad school and stuff. And then, I'm kind of, more readily close by people who are, I know from, like, a strict religious upbringing. And even if they're not strictly religious, they were raised that way. We were all kind of raised that way. Our parents still kind of interact. And so there is kind of a lot of pressure to kind of not really be able to be too open, in all honesty. Like, it's kind of hard to just be like, yo, I went on this date with this lady and, like, it went like this, it's like, or like, oh, like, I have this friend who's, like, this trans friend that I'm, like, that I have a crush on or something. Like, it's hard to really, like, talk to the religious types like that. Even if they're not religious themselves, it can be a little bit of a challenge, if they're not religious people, because they still have their religious parents, and then they might talk to their parents still, and then their parents talk to my parents, and it's kind of like this whole, like, there's, like, a lot of, like, secrecy and, like, kind of, like, cultural, social expectations. Whereas in San Diego, everyone I know is kind of, like, very accepting that we're all different. We all were raised different. We all grew up different. But I definitely have a very strong, like, queer, like, gender queer, ethnic diverse, sexual diverse, LGBT crew that I hang out with, as well as, like, interacting with their friends, meeting new people through them, meeting people, it's just a little easier of a social city, a little bit, when you do have, like, a foundation of friends. It is a little bit of an easier social city than LA, just because it's so convenient. Like, it's easier to just kind of, like, Uber 15 minutes over to your friend's place, or go to the pool, or, like, like, I made some plans. Like, I'm gonna be down in San Diego next week for, like, I think, like, 5 days, but I have plans already, like, 4 days. and I'll be like probably in the Mission Valley ish area. And I've got a friend in Claremont that we've got plans, that we're gonna chill at their pool and barbecue Sunday, and then, Monday I've got dinner plans after work, and then Tuesday I've got, other plans just to like, link up with a friend, and then Wednesday night I've got dinner plans with some friends, and then Wednesday daytime I have a work meeting, and then Thursday I haven't determined if I'm gonna like what I'm gonna do exactly, because I think Thursday I check out, so I don't know if I'm taking Thursday off or half the day Thursday or what. I might take like a half day Thursday, but just so I can drive back and check out and not have to like freaking worry. But I feel kind of just it's kind of a hard place to be. Like, honestly, it can be a little bit of a hard place to be, to just be like just like, not even that things are really going like terribly. It's not like that. It's just, I wasn't expecting to like necessarily uproot. And then in my head, I was like, yeah, it's just gonna be the summer. And then the more I think about things, I'm like, ooh, it might be longer than the summer. But I do have a lot of like options of things where I'm just kind of having, it's a little struggle making decisions, like I got a job offered back in Chula Vista, but I'm like, that's Chula Vista, that's far, and meaning I can't work remote anymore, so I'd literally have to move back, and the pay rate is just under kind of what I would need to kind of like comfortably afford an apartment at $2,000. I'm expecting if I move, I'm gonna have to pay $2,000 a month. That's about, according to Zillow, that's about average-ish. And I'm talking like studios close to like 2,000, like, and I'm not an extravagant person. Like, a studio to a one bedroom, like at about $2,000. Like, you can still find stuff in like the 1,500 range, but it's like, that's expensive, for just like a room, that's expensive. But y'all know my roommate situations. Like, I'm not trying to go back into any of that. No, sir. So, I am kind of like, socially, I'm a little more isolating myself, even though I have friends that I grew up with who are kind of like reaching out in LA, and it's like the ones I want to hang out with are pretty swamped and busy, and we're all kind of like involved in our jobs and career paths and things, and so it's kind of hard to really kind of like make plans. Like, it has to be solid plans. It can't just be like, like I might be over here, like maybe we can hang. Like, it has to be like this day, this time, this place, and then even confirming on the way there, hey, I'm on my way, like, you want to meet, kind of thing. But like in San Diego, it's a little bit different. Like, you can just be like, yo, like, I just want to kick it with you, like, do you want to hang out like tomorrow? Like, let me know when you get off work and we'll decide where we want to meet, kind of thing. And like, because it's not that inconvenient. Like, if somebody's driving like an hour, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, like, you need to know where you're going. You can't just like show up and then have somebody be like, oh, you need to be 10 miles over here in this direction instead, and then drive like another 40 minutes over there. Like, 10 miles is long in LA. Like, you're driving far, like in traffic. 10 miles, like, that can take like, that's over 30 minutes of driving right there. And so, it's hard to just like randomly just be like sporadic and spontaneous. And I'm not really too incredibly spontaneous, but I've noticed that I do like that spontaneity a little bit, or even like planning, but not really planning like so hardcore, and like, I just like, I really like, meeting up with friends, socializing and stuff. But it is a little bit hard when it's like, people don't really know what's been going on in your life. And I was talking to one of my close friends the other day, the Monday that I had off, and I was saying, like, like, I do appear to be like a lot more conservative than I actually am, like, sexually, dating wise. Like, I appear to be a lot more conservative. Like, it is kind of a protective measure for me, but also it's like, I do need to, like, feel people out, and then, but I am a lot more protective, of myself. And then as far as, like, who I share things with, I don't just, like, share everything with everybody. And so, I have friends who want to hang out, but then I'm kind of, like, avoiding them a little bit, because I'm like, it's kind of at a point where it's like, are we really going to talk about our real life and what's actually happening? Or am I just going to give you the fluff of, oh, this is my job, and this is, I'm back in the gym now, snowboard training again. Like, am I going to keep it pretty superficial, or am I going to really deep dive? It really is a matter of trying to really trust people with things. And the people I know, the churchy ones, are really not, they don't have the best track record of keeping secrets to themselves. They're very gossipy, very just like, oh, just like, don't tell anybody I told you this because I'm not supposed to say anything, kind of thing. And that's how things get out. And so I'm not really trying to necessarily not come out to them, but also it's like, not everybody really needs to be involved in my life if they're not involved in my life. Like, I feel kind of like, part of me feels like, okay, like, if they were already involved in my life on a more regular, deeper level, then they would have already known. Because, like, you guys know, like, I'm posting all over the internet, and I'm running all over San Diego, for like years I've been doing this, and even before I was posting. And it's like, if people were in touch with me and just asked me, have you gone on a date recently? Like, have you seen anybody? Have you been seeing anybody? Do you have any interest? Like, they would have known, because they don't even ask, and so I don't really say anything. And so, and like I said, like, people just kind of assume, kind of based on how I present to them, that I'm, like, really conservative and really kind of like, not really into dating or whatever. That's like a big assumption that people have of me. And I mean, I'm not, like, bitter about it, but it's definitely a reality that I am aware of, that people kind of don't really know too much about my dating life. As far as, like, the friends I have in LA, a lot of them do know, then a lot of them don't know. But about my dating life, and about, how I've been, like, how things are going. But yeah, at the beginning I started talking about, how it is, like, moving in with people, moving around people, that maybe don't really know things about you. It's kind of like, part of it's like, you don't owe it to anybody. But then another part of it's like, when you're used to being kind of like more out and proud and just like out doing your own thing, and you're just like, whatever, like, this is how I am. And then you come back into a city where people kind of see you a little different. They're like, maybe you dress a little differently, or maybe, you seem a little different, with the things you share, about where you hang out or what you do. And, like, my friends that I've caught up with in LA, the religious ones, like, they all know that, like, I definitely know a lot about trans culture. I definitely know a lot about pride. I definitely know a lot about bars and clubs and concerts and parties, and, a lot of stuff that, they never knew that I knew anything like that, or was around people that did those types of things, or, like, things about weed or psychedelics or alcohol or whatever, like, and I'm not saying that they're completely sheltered, that they don't know anything. Like, they're definitely a part of the general public, work in hospitals, work in schools, like, work in places where they're, like, interacting with others. But it's just kind of different because, they have their lifestyle of, you know, church, and with that lifestyle, I'm saying not every church is like this, but I'm talking these specific people, this specific type of church environment. I know how it is. It's just gossipy. That's how it is. That's the culture of it. And so, for me, it's like I'm walking a fine line of trying to set up an environment that works for me, which is, let's keep it athletic. Like, if you want to do athletic stuff, that's going to benefit us. If we're going to be hanging out, we're all going to get the benefit from, like, this athletic interaction of, like, doing a sport, or, even just, like, being out in the sun and at the beach and stuff like that. When it starts coming to, like, more intimate connections of, like, dinners or just hanging out to chat or, like, whatever, that's kind of like a little bit of a blurred line for me right now with these people, because it's like, I feel like if people really want to know you and really want to catch up, they're not going to wait for like 10 years or so, or 9 or 8 to 10 years, to start making plans together, to start trying to, like, talk to you about what you're doing lately. It's like, I'm here. Like, other than the pandemic, it's not like I never came up to LA. Like, I came up to LA at least probably almost once a month, just to see my folks and stuff. And so it's not like I was never here. And so it's kind of like, okay, like, you'll invite me to this, you'll invite me to that. But, as much as I kind of want to be available for you and your family, or I want to be, like, involved in your life, it's a little hard for me to kind of be trusting that it's going to fully work in my favor and that I'm not going to get any backlash of it. So that's kind of my LA side. The local LA side, the convenient local LA side, is just kind of not the, it's not a bad environment, but it's kind of like, I'm kind of like slowly talking to people about, like, my dating life and stuff. But the problem is, I feel like they're going to be quickly talking to others. And so, I almost hesitate to be like, I don't want you to tell anybody, this is like a secret. Don't tell other people. Because I feel like that puts more pressure on them. And I know they can't keep secrets to save their lives. Like, they can't at all. Like, I think I've mentioned before how, like, when I talked about dating with them, I talked about, like, gossip just in general, and, like, my views on it, and how I don't really want gossip in my life, and please, can we not turn our social interactions into, like, some gossipy interactions. How I've kind of opened up about, my experience with that, directly telling a lot of my religious friends, like, hey, the reason why I'm avoiding you guys, honestly, is because of the gossip problem. And then just the fact that they couldn't really control it, even, like, within the same 24-hour period. I'm just like, it's just out of control. Like, and it's, even if people address it and say, like, hey, it comes from a place of insecurity, or, like, I'm like, okay, like, fine. But it's like, like, I don't need to expose myself to it either, just because people want to hang out and catch up with me. Like, if you want to hang out and catch up, you're going to have to, be respectful, of the way that I need things to be done. Like, I've been through a lot with the freaking people I've been living with before, where it's like, I don't, I'm out of that situation. I'm not trying to come into some other environment where it's like, now there's some other issue now. I left that, gladly left it. I left it and went to San Diego and found something that worked for me. I created the life I want for myself in San Diego. I've said that time and time again. That's kind of how I prefer my life to be, is how it is when I'm in San Diego. Um, and it works for me, it works for me down there. Um, but and it's also close enough to LA that if I want to come up, I can come up. But it is kind of like a little energy drain to hang out with people and just have like a completely superficial, just shoot the shit kind of interaction. It's like that's kind of not worth my time too much. It's like, yeah, we're just like going through the motions. And I mean, these are people I've known since I was like 5 years old, or in like second grade, or in third grade. Like I met these people like in like seventh grade, some of them, or when I was in eighth grade rather. And like, these are people I've known for a very long time. Like, they're not like new people in my life. These are people I grew up with. So it's kind of like, we grew up together, and I'm kind of feeling out, okay, like, how have you changed? How have you not? There's stuff I haven't changed on. There's stuff they haven't changed on. But it's really hard to kind of gauge, like, like, is this going to be like an okay environment? Like, I definitely know the people that I can be open with. Like, it's not like everybody is like that, but I definitely know the people I can be open with, that I'm most comfortable with, that I can talk to and share with and things like that. But it's just a little, it's a little bit anxiety provoking, to be honest. Like, it's a little bit like, okay, like, let's meet and then we can like hang out and talk, and then it's like, it's cool. But it's like, dude, like, sometimes there's other stuff I want to talk about too. And like, and then I even think about, how it is when I'm in San Diego with my friends down there, and it's like, they know what's going on, like with my job, with, dating life, with like everything. Like, we're very like intimately involved with one another as far as like catching up and stuff. Like, I know when they take a trip, I know when they're on vacation, I know when they want to make plans, when they want to hang out, when they're like, hey, just like let me know when you're around, like, let's make plans, let's like, you know um like, I know, because I and I know how it is socially being around them too. And it might be because, I have the majority of my friend group is like psychologists, and so it does kind of come with a different social kind of, you know, dynamic, where you kind of understand like what not to share and how to create safe spaces and boundaries and stuff like that. Like, we do this on such a regular basis and talk about it so much that it just becomes like second nature, that we're into self-development and trying to like problem solve when stuff isn't working, and just make our lives better, help other people find out ways to make their lives better, helping people find their own direction and what they really gravitate towards. And I feel like, a lot of people don't spend their whole day trying to problem solve, life's challenges, like, they do for themselves, but I don't think that they actively are sitting there with multiple types of variety of issues that go on in society, that they're actively like finding methods that work and actively finding strategies that work, for like emotions, for like physical pain, for, past trauma, recent trauma, current like toxic environments, for, even like sleep problems, substance problems, like all kinds of stuff. Like, they're not usually, unless they have that problem themselves, they're not usually like delving into like multiple different things. And so, I do kind of have a preference towards like the environment that I'm in San Diego, because it is, around people who were just, when somebody has a problem, we can meet up, we can still hang out, we can talk about the problem, we can talk about our lives, we can catch up, we can still have fun, we can laugh, cry together, we can talk together, we can, you know, do whatever, whatever the moment calls for, we can kind of make that work in that way, and whatever is going to be beneficial for all parties. We're not there to just be like, okay, I'm like super insecure and like, like we all are insecure. We all have our egos and insecurities, but I mean, I do think I am a very socially anxious person, because, it does take me a while to kind of like, um, you know, um, yeah, I'm socially anxious. Like I think about, what I worry about before I'm even like in a social setting. But, you know, it does come from, really like a history of being in non-safe social settings, like people weren't like beating me up. Like it wasn't like I was like physically bullied or anything, but it's like people really just sometimes just, you know, aren't too um, willing or interested in being very genuine and authentic. Sometimes it's like hard for people to kind of do that. It's hard for me to do that too, but there has to be a space to do it. There has to be that trust there, to be able to do it, and I feel like those relationships and interactions are usually like a far more fulfilling experience, than what it is when, you're just hanging out just to kill time, just so you're not like by yourself. And yeah, that can still be fun. Like, not every single interaction has to be some deep, like, dive into like some recent, like, loaded situation. Like, but I feel like with the friends I have in San Diego, you're able to still kind of like dive into that stuff, but then you can kind of still, have fun and like, there's like a good balance of everything. It's not just like every time we meet, it's like, let's talk about the drama in our lives. Or every time we meet, we're talking about like just like this dark stuff. Like, it can be a little bit of that of like, yeah, I'm struggling, but let's get a little tipsy, like who's got a blunt, like it can be a little fun too. So it's kind of it can be a tad of a challenge. But yeah, I usually am trying to like enjoy myself. Um um like it's not, like I said, it's not all bad. I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad, because it's not all bad. It's just challenge. It's just a challenge. It's a lot to navigate, and I know that I'm different. I think a lot of people know that I'm different. I think there's a lot of friends that I do have that are like on the respectful end, and they're just not mentioning it because I know that they know, and they're just kind of like, they're like giving me the space to kind of like come to them about it, and they're not like, yo, like you are gay, like they're they're not like that, and that is a part of like why people don't really ask me a lot of questions about dating and stuff. That is part of it. I can kind of tell that does, come into play, that is a role that, comes up into play. And so, I'm not, you know, it is kind of like a fine line between, like I'm not trying to like bash my friends, I'm just saying like I have things that I need, like, and if I can't get my needs met, then what are we doing, like it has to go both ways, like, and it is a little hard to speak up for myself and be like, hey, this is kind of what I need, socially. Like, I don't need, traumatic social environments. That's not what I need. That's not a necessity for me. I don't need that. So why would I actively go into it if it's not something that I'm trying to do, that I know how to not be involved in? Like, I wouldn't really need to do that. But I think a lot of my friends kind of can understand where I'm coming from on that note. Um, but it's just, it's hard to bring up, it's hard to mention, it's hard to talk about, it's hard to open up about. Um, it's hard for all of us to kind of navigate because we're all going through things. It's not just, I think this is the time more than ever that we do need to be there for each other. Like, I do get that sense. That's why it's such a such a challenge to try to like avoid, certain stuff when it's like, dude, we haven't had the opportunity to see each other. I've got friends that have like babies on the way and friends who already have kids. It's like, I want to go to their kids' birthdays. I want to go to their kids, the baby showers or the weddings or let's celebrate the good things. We can actually celebrate. We had a couple years where we couldn't even celebrate. And so now that we can celebrate, like, can't we just celebrate? Like, I don't want to, you know, miss out on those, major milestone events, for my friends that are having them. But then also, as a person who's not really like a straight person and my life is different, I know Brienne Williamson kind of mentioned this, how it's like it is kind of hard being like a non-straight person in a straight world, and there's all these kind of like things going on around you where you kind of see people like um doing certain stuff, and like, I'm not calling it like jealousy, but it's like my life doesn't look like that. Like, even just trying to date somebody without it going weird just because somebody's not out, or somebody has like, some kind of a work related non-safe issue going on because of their gender identity and like stuff like that. Like, just trying to like date somebody, sometimes can just be a challenge in itself, let alone find the person that's like, a good connection between each other and that you get along. And like, like, it's more, I'm not saying that straight people don't have that too, but it's like there's more to it. There's a lot of just moving pieces that, you know, can make things a lot, harder to just like make it work. Like, there are plenty of people that I'm like, I wish I was into, you know, it would have made life a lot easier if I could just be into those certain guys or whatever. Like, it would have just made life so simple to just be like, yes, like, we can be together forever, and like nobody would bat an eye. It would have been just like an easy relationship that, the parents approve, the families approve, we could, like, society approves, we're just gonna make this work, versus like trying to jump through hoops all the time with all this other kind of nonsense, just to like go out on a date or like have a solid relationship, and then finding people you can actually like trust in a relationship where you can communicate well about things and you're comfortable with different forms of communication, and kind of building that, and learning, it can really be a lot. So um I don't know if I even really have any tips, just mostly, um you know at the end of the day, trying to do what you need for yourself while not stepping on any toes, and also, considering kind of what you value, what kind of connections you value, and deciding within yourself, do you need to completely avoid this? Is it like a complete avoid, or is it a partial avoid? What does that look like? If there is some kind of avoidance, what does it actually look like? So I guess with that, that's about all I have to record for now. I got about 45 minutes till work starts, so I'm gonna go do something else for about 45 minutes, and then start my work day. But all right, guys, thanks for listening.